Before handing over to my colleagues Mahmoud and Junaid to introduce databases and talk about different types of databases, I thought it's important to give you a quick presentation on archaeological data and how we use databases in archaeology and importance of archaeological data structure. And I'm going to finish with giving an example of data organization and how data needs to be organized before being able to upload and migrate them into databases. Working in archaeology and archaeological projects, we all know that we end up with a lot of information from survey, excavations. We have different, we collect different information about, we take notes, we collect different information about sites that we're recording, we take measurements, photos, we make drawings, sketch, plans, we take coordinates, and record everything about artifacts that in the end we're collecting from the sites. And we produce this a big amount of archaeological data, and then we try to record them and in a way to archive and organize them. It could be in a paper format, or we scan and put them in a table on our computers, or using databases for some of us already. Some of us have already working with digital records. From end of 80s and beginning of 90s, archaeologists started to more and more using digital technologies to store their archaeological data, and especially in order to be able to analyze their data. Our digital data can be stored and complied in different formats on computers. They can be on written records and documents, like example of Word documents, or it could be, if you can, Chris, mute people. Sorry, because I'm not. It could be lists and tables, like Excel or spreadsheets, drawings, photography, video. You can make videos, photogrammetry, 3D scannings, and spatial data. And you record GPS coordinates. And with that, the focus is on, because archaeology is inherently spatial, we always wanted to know where the exact location of sites. So recording coordinates has been something that we've been also doing. And majority of the data that we store them, the digital data, as files in different formats. As I said, text, spreadsheets, graphics, shape files on our computers. And creating this digital record of for archaeological research and also heritage management and protection from one side is to better archive and preserve our archaeological information, to facilitate analysis and visualization of an example of spatial data, to be able to see the location of our sites and do analysis based on that, and facilitate collaboration and sharing of data with other projects and the other team members or researchers. However, we always had this challenge of wanting to be able to effectively store our archaeological data, but also more importantly, to be able to conduct complex analysis to achieve our project's goal, and to have a better understanding of what we have and do this complex analysis is where databases come in very handy for archaeologists. Why databases? And I wanted to give just a few main points, and the need to adapt tools and systems in archaeology is to allow us to better organize storage and to interpret archaeological data, to allow querying and complex analysis of archaeological data by researchers to test hypotheses, explore patterns, and draw inferences, to encourage more standardized data recording methods to allow a more efficient data retrieval. When I talk about a more efficient data retrieval, that will be also explained at the second half when we talk about arches, but one example is the inefficiency of free text and descriptive text when we want to do search or when we want to retrieve data. And the standardized recording, and again, we talk about this more later especially at Arch's session. We probably, as archaeologists and heritage professionals, can't agree on one standardized system or methods for the content of things that we're recording. However, we can use internationally used and recognized archaeological documentation standards or data modeling standards and archaeology in order to encourage the longevity of our data and sharing, better use and understanding. And these are the topics that will be covered more later on, and also with the future training and events that we're going to have. Also, looking at the heritage management and conservation side of things, we want to document sites, but we also, if we know the condition and the threats of this impacting heritage, then we can assess the level of threats such as urbanization, construction, agriculture, and so on to our archaeology, and based on that for decision makers to make informed decisions. And also to create legacy data in an accessible format to use not just for us, but also by others, and to be useful for future generations as well. Another thing that I wanted to quickly cover was in archaeology, the importance of archaeological, especially when we talk about databases, the importance of archaeological data structure. And Mahmoud will talk about this more in his presentations, but I just wanted to look from the side of the information that we collect. From one side, we collect all this information about our sites, about the characteristics or location and everything that we record about the sites. But also we have information about people, either researchers, archaeologists, surveyors, conservators, but also events and activities, different excavations, different surveys that have been done at the sites through time. And with development of this computerized data and use of databases, importance of how data is modeled and structured to explicitly document not just information about the site, but all related events and activities and people who've been involved in archaeology is also a very important point that we need to have in mind when we're thinking about how to structure and model our data. And a few things to consider that when we're thinking about archaeological data structure that goes with databases are that data collection methodology that we had from before or beginning, the field forms that we used, how we collected data about the sites that we worked on, informs directly the structure of database. Understanding, we need to have a great understanding of our archaeological recording process, whatever format we are currently using, and then try to translate that in the structure of the database. And also we need to know and understand the legacy data and what we've been collecting from before. A large part of designing archaeological databases revolves around deciding on type of information that researchers or archaeologists, heritage professionals want to preserve, and the kind of attributes that they want to create and add when they're using their databases to be able to do the analysis that they want to do. More obvious are the decision about the different characteristics about the heritage and archaeology that we record, period, location, measurement, etc. But that will have a long-term implication of how this data set will be used later. But a less obvious one are the examples of how sites also needs to be related to each other, how different components or features of each site should be related to the site. And if we think about this from beforehand, from before designing the database at a very early stage and plan carefully, it will avoid any costly or error that we might have in the future after designing the database and after adding all the data inside it. Also, we need to understand the needs. Why are we going to use this database? It happens a lot that archaeological researcher and heritage management projects start to use a database, but without clarifying from the beginning the end use or the use of the data set or the database that is going to be developed. You need to see whether the database is going to be used only for one project, a specific project, or it has a more general purpose. And by general purpose, I mean, one example could be national databases or databases that needs to be available more to people outside of your organization. And I want to finish by talking about one example of data organization and data cleaning when we think about the data before putting everything into different databases. Most of the time we have descriptive information about archaeology, or if we have tables, or if we have Excel sheets or spreadsheets, we might have in some cases, we might have few different variables together in one field. This is an example that both Junaid and Mahmoud will use more information about these two sites, X and Y example, that we use as a data set for our workshop today. And is if as it's a site, my site X as a feature type is and this is an example from Jordan, an area that I worked with before joining MAHSA. It's an early Bronze Age settlement mound, an Iron Age lower town, and in the form columns, I have two large mounds, one multi-feature components. So the issue with the tables like this are when you want to search a table like this on a specific information, let's say the chronology or the type of sites, because the different variables are all in one field, it makes the retrieval of information a bit complicated or difficult in the end. So the thing that as user of the database we need to do before even thinking or starting to use adding information or data into databases is start to clean or organize better organize the data or the legacy data that we have. So in this example, we can separate the period of the sites that we're recording from different types. And when I look at the form column, in reality, I'm talking about three different things. I'm talking about the counts, feature counts. I have two, and a form, large mounds, my settlement tail mounds, and the shape that in case it doesn't have a shape, but in my Roman fort, the shape is a rectangular structure. The way in which the data is organized and stored during analysis itself is vital to the kind of research that can conduct with your data in the end. So this is an important step to not forget. And kind of to wrap up, the things that we want to achieve is to better storage, sort and search and retrieve data, better publication and visualization, long-term use of data sets, facilitate collaboration and sharing, and flexibility of archaeological data set to accommodate future changes. And this is also an important point to have in mind, that the data that we're recording is evolving, so to be more flexible about the changes that we might need to do